Okay, President O'Brien, we are now live streaming.
Thank you, Dr. Zerbach. So I will call the regular meeting of the governing board to order at 7 p.m. Please let the roll call show that all members are present. And if you could all please stand up and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and then a moment of silence, I would appreciate that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all.
All right, I would make a motion that the governing board adopt the agenda with the exception of moving action item 6E directly following the adoption of the agenda.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Ms. O'Brien,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Mrs. Fisher.
the item 6, hold on, I gotta grab my notes. 6C has
Yes,
on the documentation under that item has the agenda item 6D on it.
Sorry.
So
Go
if
ahead.
we
Did you have-
if we vote to approve consent agenda as it is, it automatically is approving item agenda 6D.
Mrs. Taylor, could you remove the vote for adoption of the agenda because I can't move my board docs agenda around when a vote comes up, please?
She is working on that now, Ms. O'Brien.
Thank you. I actually was able to X out of it. I didn't think I had that option, but thank you. I did just remove it. And sorry, Mrs. Fisher, you're saying that
If you look at this,
hold on
the
just one
supporting
second.
documentation, yes.
For the HR changes in 5C?
Correct.
Okay, just one second, please.
I just sent Miss Taylor a screenshot of it, if that helps.
Thank you. Mrs. Moffett, go ahead.
President O'Brien, Ms. Fisher, that attachment is currently being adjusted and reloaded right now.
Thank you, Mrs. Moffett. So we will, if you could let us know when that attachment has been corrected or
We will do that.
thank you, Mrs. Fisher, for bringing that to our attention. And will board members need to exit out of board docs and re-sign in to have that refresh?
President O'Brien,
Yes, ma'am.
the agenda can be adopted as is. The attachments can be shifted, so you can make a motion to adopt the agenda as it sits. And we will make sure that that is adjusted prior to this item coming up in the agenda. And we'll make sure that you're notified when that does occur.
Okay. So, all right, then we can vote on the agenda, and that change will be made prior to us getting to that item. All right, all those in favor of approving the agenda and moving item 6E to right after adoption of the agenda, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Any abstentions?
Mrs. O'Brien, Ms. Taylor said that 2 board members have not yet voted.
Okay,
Ms. Reed and Ms. Ordway.
I'm having a connectivity issue. Ms. Taylor, would you mind putting my vote in? It logged me out. I'm trying to get back on.
Mrs. Reed voted aye. If we could log
Yep.
I
her vote
also
in.
voted aye, so I'm waiting for it to populate real quick.
Okay. Mrs. Ordway also voted aye, so it passes 5-0. Thank you, everybody. So next on the agenda, we would need a motion for item 6E, Mrs. Ordway.
Make a motion that the governing board approve the district's choice of Joan Wick for principal of Constitution Elementary School.
And do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. Is there any discussion before we take a vote? Hearing none and seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Or any abstentions?
Ms. Taylor, Ms. O'Brien said it has been logged at 5-0.
The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations to Mrs. Joan Wick, the new principal of Constitution for the 21-22 school year. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. Mrs. Wick, would you like to say anything? Or Mrs. Moffett, would you like to introduce her?
Sure, President O'Brien, we'd like to welcome Joan Wick over to Constitution Elementary School. Joan Wick has been a principal in the Deer Valley Unified School District at the K-6 campus of Park Meadows. So I know that she's going to do a great job at her new location. Joan also was a principal in the state of Wisconsin prior to coming to Arizona. So Joan, thank you for taking on this new journey with us.
I am very excited to be moving over to Constitution and working with the staff and getting to know them and build a family, to be able to continue to move kids and grow academically and through the PLC process and everything. So I'm very excited to be the person selected for the position.
Well, thank you again, Mrs. Wick, for your service at Park Meadows Elementary. And we look forward to seeing all that you will accomplish with your students and staff at Constitution in the future years. So congratulations on behalf of the board. Wonderful. Okay, we will go to our district reports. And our first report is our finance reports. And for that, we will go to Mrs. Mock.
Good evening, President. Thank you. Good evening, President O'Brien, members of the board, and guests watching online. This evening, we bring to you our first report from finance, and that will be our enrollment report for the end of March. I'm pleased to say that we did see a little bit of a student increase through the end of March. with a total of 32,185 students. Unfortunately, it is still a decrease from this time last year, but we're inching forward ever so slightly every week and every month, going down from negative 5.2% to negative 5.1% from this time last year. And we're also continuing to see, on a very positive note, students returning to the classroom brick and mortar as well. And with that, I will be happy to answer any questions about the March enrollment report.
Thank you, board members. Are there any questions? Okay, hearing no questions, I would ask Mrs. Mock that you continue on with the next finance report.
President O'Brien, members of the board, for the budget, the M&O budget report for the period ending March 31st, we also have a little bit of good news, even though it's still overall not the best news. We are seeing an increase in our projected carry forward, going from negative 2.5 million approximately is what we were projecting at the end of February, to about negative 1.3 million at the end of March. We attribute a majority of that to the projected budget decrease based on our enrollment, and mostly attributed to our AOI students and those folks getting their minutes in, so that ADE is registering all of those students so that we can get all of our average daily membership and funding for those students as well. We do see a little bit of recoup on salaries. And I think those two things together are that slight increase to our carry forward, even though it is still a negative number. As a reminder, next month, we will bring forward the FY21 budget revision. It is due by May 15th, so we will have that at the first board meeting in May. And the caution that goes with that is that when we bring forward that, we will not necessarily know what our final ADM will be until July 15th. So we will talk a lot more about FY21 budget from now and until May 11th for sure. And I will take any questions on the M&O budget report.
Are there any questions from board members on the budget report? Okay, hearing none and seeing nobody raise a hand, we are going to say thank you so much, Mrs. Mock, for your reports this evening. And we will move on to our Remain in School report, which is brought to us by Dr. Gary Zerbach.
Okay, thank you very much, President O'Brien, members of the board, Dr. Finch. It is our pleasure to provide to you this evening our newly titled Remain in School report. And we will begin by reviewing an update from Mr. Miglerino of the community level of transition matrix.
Good evening, President O'Brien, members of the board, Dr. Finch. So as we have shared with you previously, the Maricopa County releases these metrics on Thursday morning. And you can see the case count as well as the rate of positivity have been relatively flat for several weeks now. So there really hasn't been a big change. We did see maybe a slight uptick that we attributed to spring break, but even that uptick has been less than we anticipated that it was going to be, just as we speculated, not that we had any data that predicted that otherwise. And the next slide actually has the 7-day epi curve. It is also fairly flat, with having very little in the form of increases over the last several weeks of reporting for that. second here as we're trying to progress the slide through. I wanted to provide a little more time for people to study these two graphs. I'll tell you if you move it. There you go. Okay, here is the epi curve. And again, as you can see through much of the reporting, you can see steep decline that began towards the end of January and then has flattened out towards the end of February and has remained that way since. So appreciate your patience as we work through some of the technology issues. So I'll turn it back over to Dr. Zerbach.
Thank you, Mr. Miglerino. Okay, our next slide is a slide that we have shown before, and it is at the request of the board to make sure that any of our community members who are joining us know that we do have a DVUSD COVID-19 district dashboard. On this particular dashboard, if a member goes to it, you can see our buildings listed each by line item, and it has a current active case count of COVID-19. And so it is for students or staff members, and folks can check that out. And that is usually updated somewhere between 3 and 4 p.m. each Monday. So again, it is a very user-friendly URL for our district COVID-19 district dashboard. Okay, our next slide has a bit of information about our end of year events and activities, as it is hard to believe, but we are coming up towards the end of the year. I believe we have 4 or 5 Fridays left in our school year. One of the items that we do sometimes receive questions for is regarding the face mask piece. And so in Governor Ducey's Executive Order 2020-106, although he did rescind some of his previous executive orders, the executive orders around school mitigation were not rescinded. So 2020-51 is still in place, which requires the use of face coverings in schools, as well as ADHS Emergency Measure 2020-04, which mandates that face masks are present at all times on our schools. And so we continue to implement our mitigation plan and our prevention plan at our schools from now until the end of the school year. As far as athletics, we are in our spring season. We have many teams that are competing at a very high level, and those teams are across all 5 of our high schools, as we have ranked teams in the top 10 in multiple sports and some of the individual competitions as well in track and field. We will continue to abide by the AIA guidelines for our spring athletics, and we look forward to a safe and competitive season for them. We also have our middle school spring sports season. If you will recall, this is the one season that did not have a chance to play if it was an 8th grader who attended our schools last year as a 7th grader, because COVID came at the start of the spring season. So we are continuing with that. We had some schools that began their competitions this week, and so we look forward, same for them, to have a safe and competitive season. And then with our fine arts at the high school level, we have some of our fine arts doing virtual performances and some in person. Again, this is not new news to you, as I have covered this several times in previous board meetings and in board updates. In general, for our high schools, we have always prioritized them for some of our in-person events that we've had. And at our middle school and below, for folks that have asked about that, again, those activities are limited where we do not have visitors. The guidance from CDC, ADHS, and Maricopa County is still that only essential activities would be allowed for in-person pieces to that. And we have interpreted that all year, that for our high school students, since for some of them this is their last chance at either athletics or fine arts, that's why we have had visitors in a very limited capacity, excuse me, along with other mitigation measures. Okay, speaking about the high schoolers, our most important event is our high school graduation. And so we look very much forward to having our ceremonies this year. The dates are listed there for you for each of the 5 high schools. And we have a very friendly URL as well for any community members that need a reminder about when and where our ceremonies will take place. As I have informed the board already, but nonetheless, the State Farm mitigation plan will be in place. It is similar to the mitigation plan that was in place and scheduled to be used last year. However, on the positive end, they have increased the ticket capacity so that we can have more than 2 tickets per graduate. So depending on the size of the graduating class, the number of tickets that each graduate will have will range between 4 to 6 tickets. And so that is a positive piece for this year. Face masks still are required. State Farm has been very clear about that. And then there is extra time that has been built in. So you may notice that there is another half hour that's in between each of the ceremonies. And that extra half hour has been mandated by State Farm for the cleaning, sanitation, and disinfection procedures that they will utilize between the audiences that come to observe each of the ceremonies. Also, parents receive site-specific information about their seniors' graduates' graduation ceremony, and that information came from the high schools beginning on April the 5th. And then the other piece that we sometimes receive questions about is regarding next year. And so our Return to School Safely team that has been meeting since the start of the school year, really even before the school year began, so back in June of 2020, when we had our 3 work teams and the Return to School Safely being one of them, along with our parent stakeholder committee that has met throughout the year, that this campus team, which is composed of principals, along with our district-wide Return to School Safely team, which has many of our directors from fiscal services and a few other members from the district office, that we have been meeting recently, and we will continue to meet to make some of the plans and the guidance for next year. And so those meetings will continue to take place, and we will be incorporating our stakeholder committee into that in the coming weeks to make sure that they're aware of the intended plans, and then we can get some feedback from them. We will continue to incorporate our Maricopa County guidance, although at this time, Maricopa County has not been clear as far as what guidance they will continue to recommend, and so we wait to hear more from them. As far as our timeline, again, as I stated, we have begun some of these meetings in the last couple of weeks, and we will continue these throughout the end of the school year. And so I will keep you apprised of the events that will occur with this team in this group in our Friday board updates. Okay, our Communication Council Fireside Chats. This is our structure that we have used, and you are aware throughout the pandemic to make sure that all employees have an opportunity to hear from the deputy superintendents about any of the ongoings of our mitigation plan, of our curriculum, or our work plan for the school year. We will have our next one this Thursday at 4 p.m. Staff have been able to send in their questions ahead of time, which is new for this particular fireside chat. And then our chats are recorded and they're placed on the portal for staff members to view at a time that is convenient to them if they are unable to view it during the live time. And then the last slide that I have for myself is just a reminder about our vaccination opportunities. As you know, our school pod DVUSD event concluded in March when we had a couple of thousand folks come through. We were able to give them the second dose of the vaccine. That even though that has concluded, our staff still can receive the COVID-19 vaccination if they so choose. And we have provided that information to our staff members via a memo from Jenna and myself to make sure that they have the locations and the links that they would need to make that as easy as possible. And with that, I will pass the baton to Dr. Galligan.
President O'Brien, members of the board, Dr. Finch, and online guests. I just have a few updates for you today. We are going to be sharing our new recommended school name, mascot, and colors for the K-12 online school. I wanted to let you know that our enrollment for the online school started on April 1st, and we are doing a priority enrollment through May 30th. However, enrollment and registration continues through the summer. Registration for our parents is through our online open enrollment form, and that's how going into this next year, parents are indicating. We will have a survey out to our K-8 and 9-12 parents within the next week or so that will have them, ask them to indicate if they will be returning to their brick and mortar campus or if they intend to enroll in the online school for next school year. So more information will be coming out about that. I also wanted to give you an update about our student achievement, student success intervention teams. Right now, we are in the midst of the pre-K 6 team. We have our last meeting next week. They have been working really closely on how to address lost learning, kindergarten through 6th grade, retention requests by parents as well as educators and how we are addressing that. Incoming 1st grade students who did not have either a kindergarten experience or came from an online program. And then the last one that they've been focusing on is incoming DVOA students and how to help them feel part of the community again and integrating into a brick and mortar school. So that's the work that they are doing. And once we have that plan put together in a solid fashion, it will go out to our campus administrators and we will bring that information to the board as well. If you remember, I did mention in a previous board meeting that the 7-12 student achievement, student success intervention team had completed their work in early March. And we shared that with you. Dr. Zerbach, Dr. Chunas, and Ms. Miner, when they meet with their middle and high school principals, are working with them using the form, the menu of options that this team worked on. And that will be the same case for our pre-K 6 counselors and principals and APs as well. So that's just want to let you know that we are still heavily involved in working through plans on how we can currently, through the summer and into next school year, support our kids with lost learning. Which brings me to summer programming. Our summer programming is really coming together. We had a last meeting this afternoon, actually, with principals and department leaders about the plan, which is centering around these 3 areas: enrichment, intervention, credit grade recovery, and really our normal get ahead, which is DVULP. We will have a formal report for you at the April 27th board meeting about our summer programming. And at that time, we'll be able to share, I believe it was Ms. Ordway, who asked for the courses that are going to be offered through DVULP and through Pathways. And we'll have that information for you at that time. And then I wanted to let you know that we had reconvened our return to learning team for hopefully the last time this year. And we are working through multiple topics in preparation for the 21-22 school year. Some of those entail absences and how we're going to work with Canvas, and some of the others are transfers from brick and mortar to the online school to brick and mortar. It's just a number of topics that just seem to be necessary to talk through. That team is made up of a large group of teachers and administrators and department leaders as well. And so more information to come there in one of the upcoming board meetings. So we are staying very busy and our focus is heavily on how we can support our students and our teachers as we complete the year, go into the summer, and start next year. That's it for me, Gary.
President O'Brien, governing board members, a couple of updates regarding staffing. I shared with you in last week's update that 96% of our administrative contracts have been accepted, 95% of certified, and 96% of professional staff. Do want to make sure that all understand that see this data, that this is of those that were issued contracts, because some of our employees did choose to resign in advance, letting us know that they don't intend to return at the end of the school year. So per Ms. Reed's request, we will begin this week to provide to you the information that we have related to resignation data. And then I also know that she requested some information regarding reasons why people are choosing to leave and not return next year related to certified staffing. So we'll begin again to provide that to you, but are happy to see these results here. And then a reminder to anyone listening, looking for employment, we do have a job fair coming up this week from 4 to 6 p.m. online. Information can be found by contacting Human Resources or going to our website. And as a reminder to everyone, this was a very successful event last year and is really easy to participate in this way if you're looking for employment. And then always a reminder to our employees that we do expect anyone to report who has come in close contact with someone that's tested positive for COVID-19 or is experiencing symptoms of COVID-19.
And President O'Brien, that will conclude our report. We are able to field questions at this time.
Board members, are there any questions?
I do have a question of like more clarification of the essential activity. So only the high schools are able to have live performance. So for example, would a drama club are they able to have live performance, or like, I don't know what the district has in place, if this is for all or just for the high school?
President O'Brien, Ms. Paperman, yes, that is correct. The high school is the level that we have prioritized where they do have the option of providing some in-person events, provided that the appropriate mitigation and prevention strategies are in place.
Thank you.
Are there other questions?
Mrs. O'Brien, I have a question or two.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Mrs. Ordway.
Dr. Galligan, I'm not quite sure if this would be the best spot, but if not, maybe for the next report. With our seniors having a much better opportunity starting next year with 4 classes. If they're, whatever the new additions to the class selections might be, would be interesting, because I've heard everything from it'll be great, get some dual enrollment classes, and a couple more dual enrollment classes, to perhaps there will be life skill classes. So whatever it is that we're offering that's different would be appreciated to know.
President O'Brien, Ms. Ordway, it is interesting that you mentioned that. We actually had a small team of high school administrators last year through June, actually, of 2020, working on that very thing so that we would be prepared. So I'll be happy to give some information in either Friday update or in one of the remaining school reports upcoming.
You're on mute, Mrs. Ordway.
Personally, I would appreciate, thank you, the Friday update, but I'd also like it to be included in the our new "We're Back in School for Good," hopefully, report. And that's for you. And Dr. Zerbeck, I have for you, in however you can answer it. I know that we are having prom-like events at our 5 high schools. And there has been so much excitement about the opportunity for children or for the students to be able to participate, along with some, I don't get why there's no dancing kind of thing going on. So if you could elaborate as much as you know right now, that would be appreciated.
President O'Brien, Ms. Ordway, yes, that is correct. We do have prom-like activities that are scheduled to occur at all 5 of our high schools. Those 5 high schools have mitigation and prevention plans that are in place to make sure that event is as safe as possible. One of the components, as you mentioned, is about dancing. Due to some of the restrictions on physical distancing, we needed to make sure that appropriate parameters were put in place for the dancing. And so some of those are what we have called more controlled dancing. So things like there will be some separation if there's line dancing or some dancing by tables to keep from having a very large group setting. And that's, again, is due to the physical distancing.
Well, thank you. I'm most of what I'm hearing, or first what you hear is the joy that it's happening. And then it's kind of like, well, I said, there's reasons for that. And if we can't follow those reasons, then we're not going to be able to follow through on the activities. So I appreciate that the steps were taken to make sure that these seniors could enjoy one of the most unique prom-like events ever.
Yes, we too are pleased, Ms. Ordway, that we're able to provide this. As you have seen, some of the other districts in the county are not moving forward with prom, but we believe with our mitigation measures that we can do so.
Wonderful. Thank you for those questions, Mrs. Ordway. Are there any other questions? Awkward Zoom pause. Oh, is that?
I have a few.
Okay, Mrs. Fisher?
When we're talking about these fine arts events, and I know Ms. Paperman already asked, and you said that it's only high school that's being allowed, but it isn't. I mean, I know we all received an email about a performance that some of our younger students have really worked hard on preparing and are not being allowed to. And the question being, you know, high school can and summer programs can, but they can't. Is there anything being done to assist these families in either, if we're not going to allow them to have the final for everything they've worked for, a way for them to possibly do it off campus or on their own time? Are we giving any suggestions or anything? I understand mitigations, but when your mitigations are actually harmful to children, I just have an issue with that. And it's not just a disappointment that stays with these kids. We're breaking spirits. So that's my concern is there anything being given to these other age groups as an option for what they can do to have their final performance as well that they've worked so hard for? So that's question one. If you want to do that one first.
Why don't you ask? Oh. Go ahead, Dr.
Sure.
Zerbach.
President O'Brien, Ms. Fisher, so for the fine arts events for students that are not at the high school level, there are a couple of things that we have talked about with the administrators. First, they do have the ability to live stream those. We do have the ability to live stream or record those for the parents so that they are able to observe it from a remote basis. The other thing that some schools are looking at is providing some of those performances for the students. And so they might bring a couple of classrooms outside where they can space some of the students out, and then the students can perform some songs, if they're a band or if it's a choir, something like that. And so those are two examples of items that we are looking at for the middle school and below students.
I think the one they emailed us about was a rather larger production, an actual play. Is there any opportunity for them to perform for their families?
President O'Brien, Ms. Fisher, again, yes, I would say if it's done virtually through that format, they can live stream that performance, or again, they can record that for their parents.
Okay. I'll move on because I just, that's the answer. When we're looking at the return to school safety campus work teams, you mentioned the different teams that are there, and there is a mention of parents. When were these parents selected and how were they selected, or who selected them?
President O'Brien, Ms. Fisher, that goes back quite a ways. That was, I believe, we started that first process in June when we sent out our initial search to parents. There was an application that they could fill out. As you know, we have an AMG that governs the committee process. And so we followed that process. And then probably, I doubt, I'm looking around the room, I doubt there was ever a committee before that had the number of applicants that applied to this one. So we were in the hundreds in the number count of parents that applied. And we had specific roles that we wanted the parents to fulfill. And so some of those roles were if they had experience in emergency preparation or public health, the medical backgrounds, also with any human resource experience, communication, and then we had parent representatives from the 5 different regions, as well as we had parent representatives from the different levels. And so those parents applied in that application process, and they included in that process a description of what they could do with the team and how they could contribute to making it a successful year. And so a variety of folks at the district took a look at the responses. We had a spreadsheet that we went through where different folks marked who they thought would be the most appropriate to represent and make those contributions. And then when we met together, we looked to see where those aligned, to see where there was agreement. And then from there, that group began meeting. I'm going to look at Dr. G. I think we met Dr. G the middle of July. It was probably our first meeting because we began our parent webinars roughly, I think the week after we started meeting with them, getting their feedback about what parents were most inquiring about in terms of the coming school year.
One of the biggest things that's been brought to me during the election season and ever since being elected is that only certain parents are selected for anything. And there's a lot of concern that only one side of the parent equation is being listened to. Is there any discussion about opening it up for possibly parents that have a different mindset or a different view than the status quo? I mean, we have children of all different backgrounds and all different beliefs and all different concerns about where we're at, and it kind of seems like we're driven by just one. Is there any discussion about having it open for other parents?
President O'Brien, Ms. Fisher, I can tell you, and I think Dr. Galligan would attest to it as well. I have actually been in those parent meetings and been part of those discussions, and there has been a diverse range of viewpoints that have been expressed at those parent stakeholder meetings. And so there is no one single view or narrative that runs through those meetings. And so that's what I would say with respect to the types of viewpoints that are expressed in there.
So is there or isn't there any opportunity to add additional parents?
President O'Brien, Ms. Fisher, in terms of making any changes to our work teams or our parent stakeholder committee, we have not had any of those discussions right now. And if that were to change, I will certainly update the board.
I would appreciate that, but I would really like it to come in a board meeting rather than in a Friday update. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Mrs. Reed, do you have any questions?
I just have a quick comment to follow up on the drama email that we received today. I think what that drama teacher was trying to say in his email was that their licensing agreement prohibits them from being able to live stream or record that performance. So essentially, if they aren't able to perform it live for their parents, they wouldn't be able to perform it. You know, my daughter does theater. It's her lifeblood. That's her love language, and she's performing in a show this weekend over the next 2 weeks, and it's being done outside at nighttime, so everybody can spread out, and the shows have sold out. So I know that for her and for her cast, they've come from all over the valley to be able to perform in this show. And I would really love to give our other students the opportunity to be able to do that in a manner that's safe. I understand what our policies are and what our mitigation strategies are and have been, but I'm hoping that we can find a compromise that will allow the students to be able to perform in the way that to show what they've been working towards and working for, that would also protect us from legal options, you know, from breaking those licensing agreements. I would just hate to see them have to pull the plug on something that's been created through COVID.
President O'Brien, Ms. Reed, thank you for sharing that, Ms. Reed. I would need to look at that email in more detail, as that was not sent to me beforehand.
It was sent to the board. And Dr. Finch, I believe I'm happy to forward it to you so you can look it over and hopefully maybe reach out to those two teachers that sent it.
Mrs. O'Brien, can I throw something in on that?
Yes, Mrs. Ordway.
I very familiar with the licensing portions of music and the drama departments. I'm wondering if we've checked or if they've checked to make sure that since really, I don't think many performances are as they usually have been. If the licensing, the people that are doing the licensing have done any kind of accommodations for this, the COVID restrictions and mitigations that schools across the nation are experiencing. So I don't know if that's been looked at either.
President
Thank you,
O'Brien. President O'Brien, Ms. Ordway, just to clarify, when I say it was not sent to me beforehand, Dr. Finch did give me a heads up today that it was sent. What I meant to convey was the particular teacher did not come to us before sending an email to you as far as if there was some particular concern. And so I would need to have some time to look at that and then follow up with the school.
And Dr. Zerbach, we do appreciate you following up on that and getting back to us, and whether it's the Friday update or the next board meeting, that would be awesome. Thank you so much for your efforts to ensure that all of our students are able to express themselves and do the activities they love while at school beyond learning their academics. With that, oops, did someone else have another question, Mrs. Fisher? Okay. I think then I will just say thank you very much for another great job. And I love the remain in school. All right. And if I could have a motion for consent agenda?
Mrs. O'Brien, I thought that I would tell you that there is one public comment, but that won't be heard until the action item, which is 6B, just so that's there.
Thank you so much. You're muted. Mrs. Ordway. You're still muted. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Okay. So now we are going to make a motion to approve. Hold on one second. Now my iPad has closed also. Just want to make sure this consent agenda items A through H.
No, oh yes, through H, yes. Do I have a second?
A second.
And for clarification, if you all refresh your screen, if you haven't already, you could verify that the changes to the human resource changes attachment has been modified to remove the one educator. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any noes, please say no. And any abstentions?
That was 5-0, President O'Brien, according to Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Dr. Zurbach. The motion for consent agenda items A through H is approved unanimously, so we will move on to action item 6A.
I would move that ask that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to pre-approve the addenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs.
second.
Reed. Are there any questions or hearing no questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. And are there any abstentions?
President O'Brien, we need Ms. Reed to vote.
She did verbally vote aye.
It's not showing up on nothing popped up.
Okay, if Mrs. Taylor could record Mrs. Reed's aye, we would be grateful, and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Zurbach and Mrs. Taylor.
I would ask that the governing board approve the annual K-12 use of facility field fee schedule for 2021-2022.
I second.
Mrs. Mock? Is there anything to hear from Mrs. Mock on this? Yes, okay.
President O'Brien, members of the board, just a brief statement about the fee schedule that we are putting forward this evening. Last year at this time, we actually presented a fee schedule where we recommended a 3-year increase, stepping closer to some of the rental fees that our neighbors and other districts around us have. However, due to the circumstances of the last year, with our renters and our community members that rent our facilities having just as many hardships, inability to rent, inability to run their programs because of the shutdown, et cetera, we are actually recommending no increase to the fee schedule this year. We're recommending to keep all of the fees at the same rate they were for this current year, 2021. And perhaps next year at this time, when we're looking for 22-23, we could maybe consider an increase at that time. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that background and additional information, Mrs. Mock. Are there any questions by board members? Hearing none, I would call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the annual facility field and fee schedule for 21-22, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, please say nay. Are there any abstentions?
That's a 5-0 vote, Ms. O'Brien.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zurbach. Item B passes unanimously. We will move on to item 6C. I can have a motion.
I have a motion that the board approve the ELAAPIB English Language Arts Advanced Placement and International Baccalaureate adoption. And Mrs. O'Brien, this is where the public comment is, so you let me know.
What is as
gonna do that.
recommended by district, and do we need a second first, and then we'll have that public comment?
Okay.
I second.
Okay. And I'm sorry, you know what, before we do the public comment, do we want to hear from Dr. Galligan first and then do it after that? Does that work? Perfect. Okay, Dr. Galligan, we'll go to you.
President O'Brien. President O'Brien, members of the board, Dr. Finch, and online guests. This is the same presentation, but we did add into board docs the feedback from our community for the APIB ELA adoption. Information was also in this past week's Friday update. You have a list of positive feedback as well as negative feedback. Just under 81% were positive, just over 16% were negative, and we just had about 3% that had no opinion. So I just wanted you to have that information, and I'd be happy to take any other questions that you may have.
Ms. O'Brien, you are muted right now.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mrs. Ordway, please read the comment from the public.
All right, would you also like me to read the comment? I guess I don't have to read the preface to that, or do you want me to? The board
Oh,
invites.
you probably should
Yeah.
to be follow process.
Okay, the board invites public comments on the district's business in general and on any agenda item in specific, although now the comments for this meeting are specific to the agenda items. All speakers must observe the rules of decorum. Speakers must fill out a card listing name, address, and topic, handed to the board secretary prior to the president calling the meeting to order. Speakers must make their comments no more than 3 minutes. If necessary, to accommodate all speakers within the 30-minute overall limit, the board president may shorten each speaker's time. Constructive criticism is in order, rudeness, vulgarity, disruptive conduct, or remarks disrespecting personal dignity are not in order and will not be allowed. Under the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the governing board cannot discuss or act on any items not listed on the agenda. Board members may respond to criticism made by a speaker, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. And just for a reminder, the link for public comment during the virtual board meetings are on board docs. So we have that link available for our public to send a comment in. This comment comes from.
You've muted yourself accidentally, Mrs. Ordway.
I did. This item is from Audra Damron. She says that while on the committee for this curriculum adoption, I was astounded to hear that our district's AP programs had not updated their curriculum in 20 years, and IB never had a proper curriculum. Our students deserve better. The curriculum being suggested for adoption tonight are well put together, include technology components that are adaptable with Canvas, our district platform, and align with the standards our students will need to succeed in these classes. They contain a wide variety of literature, ranging from Shakespeare to Maya Angelou, each piece chosen with care to meet the different standards and prepare the students for the courses and assignments. I ask that you support the time and effort put in by this committee, made up of community members, parents, teachers, and support the time and effort of the administrators to adopt this curriculum, giving our students the best opportunity to succeed in the future and showing our teachers we stand behind the work they are doing in their classroom each day. Thank you for your time. And that concludes the public comment.
Thank you, Mrs. Ordway. Are there any board questions? Hearing,
Mrs. O'Brien, I just have a comment. I didn't read all of the textbooks, so I'm not saying that, but I have gone through it. And I find that there is such a selection of diverse selections, diverse opinions, diverse information, along with fact. So I believe that this is the platform for our students to put in that critical thinking and to begin or continue, but get so much deeper into discerning the difference between someone's opinion and the facts that it might be based on. So the diverse selections that are in that I've read so far that are in these adoptions is just, to me, incredible. So I really appreciate the time and effort that was put into doing this. And Dr. Galligan, it's not a trick question, and I forgot to look, but when were these, and not now, if you don't know, when were these textbooks actually, what was their copyright? Because I know it wasn't last year. It takes time for them to get out. But I'm just interested in that. And if you don't know right now, that's fine. Just send it in an update.
President O'Brien, Ms. Ordway, the copyright was 2018 of the AP texts. And I can find the copyright for the IB text and put that in this Friday's update.
Thank you so much.
thank you so much, Dr. Galligan. Are there any other questions from board members?
I just want to make a statement as well.
Yes, Mrs. Fisher?
I did take the time to rifle through a lot of this once a parent had sent it to me. This is how to get on, this is where we found it. I am a little concerned that parents really didn't have a lot of time to look at it once they finally got it. And as I looked on my own, I am very concerned that there is a variety of readings, but there is an extreme liberal slant throughout this curriculum. I don't believe it depicts, it doesn't depict anyone who is conservative or Republican or on one side in a positive light, and it doesn't present anyone on the other side as anything other than glorious. And so I do find it a little concerning. And I'm saying that not because I believe it's going to change anybody's mind. I'm saying that because I want the committee to know I do appreciate their effort and their work. I do appreciate the parents that sent me their comments and their concerns and sent me where I could find things. And I do appreciate every parent on all sides that took the time to provide their comment. But I just felt it was important that I noted my concerns so that my vote is not a surprise. I do think our students need the best curriculum. And I know there is such a wide variety of curriculum. We would never adopt, say, an ABECA curriculum because it's 100% biblical. I think this is a curriculum that is kind of on the other side. And so my concern is just that there is a slant one direction, and because of that, and that is the sole reason that my vote will be what it is. But I do thank you for your effort.
Ms. O'Brien, you are muted.
Thank you. Dr. Galligan, will you please remind us how long the materials were available again for the public to review?
It first went on public review in December, right before winter break, and it extended just through this week. We extended it so that based on board request for additional public comment, we were able to just extend it. And so some of the comments that you see were from earlier this semester, and some of them were more recent within the last 2 weeks.
Okay. And when we have, given this, the pandemic year, how did we notify parents or the community members that this was available for review?
President O'Brien, we notify through our website, both on the front of it and then in our curriculum area. In general, this was a request a couple of years ago. We do our best to get it out on our social media through Ms. Allred. We did send this information out to our teachers to send out to their parents. And we did do that most recently within the last 2 or so weeks. And we will continue to do our best as each of the board members would like us to do to get our public to review and comment.
Excellent. Thank you so much. If there are no further comments, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Any abstaining?
Ms. O'Brien, if we could wait 1 second, we have a 2-to-1 vote recorded right now.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Ms. Taylor, you might have to record my vote. It's kicked me out again. I'll try and refresh.
And just to clarify, Mrs. Reed, that is an aye.
Oh, sorry, it just popped up. So yes, I'll vote. It's an aye.
Mrs. O'Brien, it's a 4-1 vote.
Thank you. The motion for the curriculum adoption passes 4-1. We'll move on to item 6D.
I would request that the governing board approve the employee request for separation of employment from Deer Valley Unified School District.
I second.
Prior to any discussion on this matter, I'd like to read a statement. Tonight, the governing board is considering whether to accept the resignation of a teacher. Normally, resignations are approved through human resource actions during the consent agenda. Given circumstances surrounding this resignation, I will provide information pertinent to the decision we, the Deer Valley Governing Board members, may make this evening. After I read the statement provided by the district's attorney, I will open the matter up for discussion and questions, reminding my fellow board members that this is a personnel matter and names will not be used. Are there any board members recusing themselves from the vote? Hearing none, in order to terminate a continuing teacher for unprofessional conduct, the district must provide a teacher with the due process procedures required by statute. These are in ARS 15-539 to 15-543. And they were provided to board members in last week's update. The process requires preparing a statement of charges for board adoption. If adopted, then the charges are personally served on the teacher. Once served, the teacher has 10 days to request a hearing. If no hearing is requested, then their employment ends at that time. Teachers oftentimes request a hearing because doing so extends their income. If a hearing is requested, it is held within 15 to 30 days following the request unless both sides agree to a different hearing date. Mrs. Fisher, would you mind muting, please? The hearing is almost always conducted by a hearing officer, although the board has the option of hearing the matter itself. The typical hearing lasts 1 to 2 full days, so almost all boards prefer to have a hearing officer conduct the hearing. A student or students may be required to testify to prove the district's statement of charges. After the hearing concludes, the hearing officer has up to 10 days to prepare written findings of fact, conclusions of law, and make a recommendation to the board on whether or not the charges were proved. The hearing officer's recommendation is then put on a board agenda for a vote to accept, reject, or modify the hearing officer's recommendation. That process typically takes about 3 months to complete. During this time, the teacher is on paid administrative leave. Other costs to the district are attorney's fees for prosecuting the case, hearing officer fees, and fees associated with the hearing, such as service fees, subpoena costs, a hearing transcript if desired, etc. The total price tag is usually around $50,000, about $20,000 in salary and benefits to the teacher, approximately $15,000 in attorney's fees, $10,000 in hearing officer costs, and $5,000 in other related expenses. The district's attorney does not believe any of those costs would be covered by Valley Schools Insurance Trust. District staff will also spend significant time preparing for and being at the hearing. If the teacher is not terminated, they are entitled to recover attorney's fees from the district. If a teacher tenders their resignation and the board adopts it, then their employment ends no later than the day of the vote and may be retroactive to the date the teacher requested it to take effect. A teacher who resigns is usually not paid past the effective date of the resignation, and insurance benefits would typically end on the last day of the month in which the resignation becomes effective. A teacher who voluntarily resigns would usually be disqualified from receiving unemployment benefits as well. Accepting a resignation is the quickest, cheapest, least disruptive, and surest way to achieve the district's main objective: severing its unemployment relationship with an employee. It also avoids the need for any student testimony. Whether the teacher resigns or is terminated, the district can, and in many instances must, report to the matter to the Arizona Department of Education. This is covered in ARS 15-514. Arizona Department of Education can then take additional disciplinary steps with respect to the teacher's certification, including revoking it. Whatever action the district takes, accepting a resignation or termination, does not limit or control what actions, if any, Arizona Department of Education's professional certification unit will take. I would just remind my fellow governing board members that this is a personnel matter. To determine whether or not to accept a resignation, please do not use the employee's name. So with that, are there any process questions from my board members? Is there any discussion?
Yes, I do have one thing I want to say.
Okay, Mrs. Fisher?
I know the cost of going through the termination process. Dang it. I know that the cost is significant. But I know that allowing a resignation in lieu of termination generally secures the certification of the teacher or administrator for future employment in other districts. Considering my history, I cannot in good conscience allow anyone to potentially be put in a situation where they are compromised. And I think it is highly concerning that anyone would put a dollar above a lifetime for individual. And so I just think that it's very important that we weigh not only the money, but the health and safety of students now and into the future. Because silently allowing something to happen makes you as guilty as the individual who does it. And that's just my opinion. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Are there any other comments from board members?
Mrs. O'Brien, is it okay if I speak?
Yes, Mrs. Ordway.
Mrs. Fisher, I do not know specifically what you're referring to, but I think I know what you're referring to. And I would have an experience or two of my own. So when I first read of the resignation as opposed to a termination, it seemed not exactly what should happen. However, when I read the information and realized that a resignation removes that person from our district immediately, knowing that the Department of Education looks at resignations, and I have no idea what will happen after this, but perhaps there might be things that will happen from different agencies. The only thing that I see when a certificate is taken away, the only place that that person can teach is in a charter or a private school if they don't do a background check. So I am more than torn between a resignation and a termination. But the resignation takes this person out of our system as soon as we vote. And that's why I'm going to vote the way I vote.
Any other comments from?
I just want to say that,
Mrs. Fisher, hold on, Mrs. Fisher, could we let other board members who've not had an opportunity to talk first, please? Thank
Okay.
you. Mrs. Paperman or Mrs. Reed?
Yes, I would like to say that student safety is top priority, and I can see Ms. Orwade with her statement that what will be best for our students, and a resignation, the Board of Ed or the Lord or thorough investigation can continue with that. But right now, our focus is keeping our students safe.
Thank you, Mrs. Paperman. Mrs. Reed?
I currently don't have anything to say at this point. If Mrs. Fisher would like to finish her thoughts, that's fine with me.
Okay. Mrs. Fisher?
I just want to note, Ms. Ordway, I appreciate your comment, but you absolutely do not have an idea of what I'm speaking of. And that's okay. I don't expect you to. But having worked in the industry for a long time, I understand that the difference between a resignation versus a termination, or even a non-renewal of a contract. One simply moves you somewhere else, and one destroys your career, or at least stops you from being in that area. And I really don't agree with your statement about private schools or charters. And I don't think this needs to be about them. It is public districts that will hire again, or a charter, or any exposure to children is my concern. And I appreciate that we all have to vote whatever our conscience is, and for whatever our reasons are. And I hold no ill will towards any other board member that votes differently than I do. But I have to vote on my beliefs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. So what I'd like to say about the matter is that I would, given the circumstances, prefer a termination. However, when I consider the additional impact on a student or students that may have to provide testimony in hearings, it is thinking of helping them or protecting them that will be guiding my vote, as well as knowing that accepting a resignation terminates our relationship immediately. In addition, I do know that there are statutory requirements for reporting educators, and that the State Board of Education will investigate and put an educator through the due process they're due under the Arizona certification requirements. And once they make their determination, whatever that is, it is shared with every state in the United States and all U.S. territories as well. So having have spent some time on one of those advisory committees, they take their work very seriously, and a district's decision to accept a resignation or terminate does not have any bearing on that process at all that the State Board of Education follows. I don't know if Mrs. Reed, you have anything to say, and I don't want to pressure you. I'm good. I just want to give you an opportunity if you do, and if you don't, well, I will call for the vote.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien. So when it comes to this decision, I also know that, Mrs. Fisher, I sincerely understand where you're coming from, and you made very valid points, as did you also, Mrs. Ordway. Just common sense wise, you can do a quick Google search when you're doing hiring, and I've done my fair share of hiring, and I think that you can help figure out what type of person somebody is by what's posted on the internet. And I know that there will be, and there has been quite a lot that has been posted about this. And then we also have a statutory requirement that when our district finds out that there may have been harm to our students or to our employees, that we file a police report, and we have followed those policies to do those things. And I believe that that our police departments are conducting a very thorough investigation that will also move this situation into a different court, if you will say, not just with the governing board being a deciding body. So I'm confident in my decision of the way that I am going to vote, because I know that there are the possibility of other consequences for this teacher's choices and behaviors that stretch beyond the guidance and the authority that the governing board has. So thank you.
With that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
Aye.
Nay.
I don't think we have any abstentions. Dr. Zerbach, if you could verify my vote count for me, please.
Ms. Taylor has a 4-1 vote.
Thank you. The acceptance of the resignation is approved 4-1. We have already handled the matter in 6E, And we now will move on to preview item 7A, which is a proposal for our K-12 online school name. And I believe that that is going to be Dr. Gail Galligan providing us with some information.
President O'Brien, members of the board, Dr. Finch, and online guests. I am so very happy to bring to you tonight our recommendations from the K-12 Online School Committee. Our committee was made up of a diverse number of children, parents, teachers, administrators, department leaders. And I can tell you that the children who participated were engaged, had such good suggestions and ideas, and really were a huge part of the collaborative process in working toward, first of all, a survey for soliciting input, and then taking that input and identifying the names and options for the school mascot and colors. And then finally, when we all came together with the final information, were just a huge part of it. I am so very proud of our team, the students, the parents, the teachers, and our department leaders that participated. Our process was, we met 4 times. You can see the information here. We started early in February. We ended toward the end of March. As I just said, we first took a look at what was the history of the Deer Valley Online Learning Program, as well as the start of the Deer Valley Online Academy this year. The team worked on an initial survey that went out through Ms. Allred's department. We solicited initial input February 8th through 12th. We came back on the 19th and decided we really hadn't had enough input. So we wanted to go out one more week, and so that is what we did. We sent that exact same survey back out and really bumped up our numbers, which were pretty good. Here's just something that is just a precious and sweet goal that our team, made up of the kids and teachers, we really wanted to have 5,000 responses on that initial survey, because we had so many children and teachers involved this year, and parents. Well, our first foray back to us was just about 370. So it was like, oh my goodness, which is why we sent it back out again. And we did go up a few hundred. On March 2nd, we took that survey input and determined final names. There were 4 names, 4 mascots, 4 colors that were part of the ballot that went out to our K-12 DVOA, DVULP students and teachers. It went out to our families through Canvas, and we were able to get that ballot information back. And on that last meeting in March, we reviewed the ballots and we determined and came to complete consensus on a final recommendation for the K-12 online school name, mascot, and colors. And here it is. It will be called Aspire, Deer Valley's Online Academy. Our mascot will be the Phoenix, and our colors will be red, orange, and yellow. We are working currently on what that mascot will look like, but this was the ballots and our teams working through those ballots determination. So Aspire is the school's name. And I just wanted to let you know that Juliet Amara is our director. She replaces the previous director who resigned earlier this year. And Shelley Schubert is our very strong and capable principal. And this year she is K-8. Next year she will take on K-6. So with that, this is a preview item for you, and we will bring it back for final approval at the April 27th board meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Galligan, for sharing. That's such wonderful news, and I love the new name and mascot, and certainly appropriate given coming out of a pandemic. So it's beautiful. Are there any immediate questions for this item? All right, awkward Zoom pause. Hearing none, we will move on to preview item 7B, which is the recommendation for 9-12 World Language Curriculum Materials Adoption. And I guess we'll call this part of the show the Dr. Galligan Show.
Once again, President O'Brien, members of the board, Dr. Finch, and guests. Tonight, Amber Martinez, who is our World Language CIS and Immersion Coordinator, and I will present the recommendations for World Language Curricular Materials. Our committee members, you can see here, went through the same process as all of our committee members. We post to our website. We do our very best to also put it out on social media through Ms. Allred's department. We did have our teachers send out this information to their parents as well. That happened within the last 3 weeks, so I just wanted to be transparent there. And of course, we always work to have teachers and administrators represented, as well as our Information Service and Technology Department, since they will be working hand in hand with us on the digital licenses that go along with it. And then our parents. So this is the makeup of our World Language Committee. Our adoption process, you can see, started in October 9th when we began with our paperwork and came to a final end on March 11th, although we did keep that public comment and information on our website up through just this last Friday. As you know, the purpose of an adoption is really to ensure that we stay current and up to date, and that our students and our teachers have the very best resources to support our state standards and our curriculum. You can see here that our adoptions support teachers with their instruction, and specifically, this adoption is for second language acquisition and proficiency, and then also for secondary and post-secondary opportunities once students graduate from our world language programs. Our rationale for the recommendation that you will see is really right listed here. And I'm not going to read each of these to you, but the team, it was a large team, and they really did focus on these 7 areas: standards, proficiency-based as related to world languages, communication, cultural competencies, organization of the materials, images that are visually appealing for children who are learning a new language and immersing themselves in that culture, the content, assessments, and technology. So these are all of the criteria for our work, the team's work, in the recommendation that's coming to you. I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to see if Amber Martinez is here. Amber, are you on board? Okay.
You're muted, Amber.
Okay, thank you. So
Awesome.
after reviewing the curriculum materials from numerous publishers, the committee recommended Carnegie Learning for all 3 language groups, Spanish, French, and Mandarin, to support their core instruction. Carnegie Learning's programs are directly aligned to the Arizona and National World Languages standards. Students build their confidence in the language by working in all 3 modes of communication: interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational. The program is designed to develop students' language proficiency and cultural competence. The dynamic digital learning platform includes listening and speaking tools, a digital library of leveled readers, authentic articles, and cultural videos, and an easy way for teachers to differentiate instruction. The comprehensive instructional resources included included, offer teachers a variety of ways to engage students in the learning. So starting with middle school exploratory classes, Carnegie Learning offers instructional tools designed specifically for younger students. The Exploring series provides an introductory foundation for students to enter core world languages courses. For Spanish 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, Que Chévere offers students a collaborative and communicative approach to language learning. Each unit is grounded in cultural context and begins with an essential question and can-do statements aligned with the standards. The scaffolding in each thematic unit leads to communicative activities in which students use the language in real-world contexts. Once our students finish the core Spanish program, they can continue to advanced placement courses. There are close to 100 students currently enrolled in AP Spanish Language and Culture and Spanish Literature. The committee recommends Abriendo Paso by Savas to prepare students for the Language and Culture examination, along with the AP Preparation Book by Jose Diaz. For AP Spanish Literature, we recommend Azulejo. Azulejo includes all the texts on the AP required reading list, chronologically organized to allow students to analyze the work within an historical context. All of these materials are aligned to the AP themes and include AP-style practice questions and activities. For our International Baccalaureate students, the committee recommends Mañana and Spanish B. These resources help develop students' language skills and critical thinking as they explore the 5 IB themes. This is a 2-year program which was revised in 2019, and these sources are aligned to the new test format and themes. In addition, we offer Spanish for Spanish speakers for students whose language is Spanish, but who are still developing their literacy skills, particularly in reading and writing. For 1-2, we recommend Spanish Mini-Qs by the DBQ project. DBQ stands for Document-Based Questions. The Mini-Qs are small units of study consisting of 4 to 7 documents in Spanish, which students read in order to answer a question. Students develop critical thinking and literacy as they pull evidence from the documents to support their answers in writing. In levels 3, 4, and 5, 6, the committee recommends Intrigas and Imagina from Vista Higher Learning. These resources include literature and authentic texts from Spanish-speaking world to engage more advanced students in thought-provoking discussion and analytical writing. For our core French materials, we return to Carnegie Learning. The name of the series is Te Branché. Te Branché is again aligned with the Arizona and national standards to help students develop proficiency in speaking, listening, reading, and writing, as well as demonstrating a knowledge and understanding of French culture. As with the Spanish program, it includes a comprehensive collection of instructional materials, as well as a digital platform, which easily allows students to interact with the curriculum through innovative technology. Te Branché also includes level 4, which the committee recommends for AP. Pre-AP exercises are included throughout the 4-year program, and communicative activities and themes are designed for alignment with AP. We also recommend the AP French preparatory book by Richard Ladd, which includes AP questions and exercises. For students in International Baccalaureate, The committee recommends Le Monde en Français and French B. Similar to IB Spanish, IB French is a 2-year course, and the examination format and themes were revised in 2019. These resources are aligned to the new IB curriculum and are designed to develop students' critical thinking and French proficiency in speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And for our Mandarin program, we recommend Carnegie Learning's series entitled Zhenbang. Unlike other Chinese textbooks, Zhenbang is specifically designed for American high school students. The materials are relevant and colorful and focus on standards-based communication. Moreover, the program includes interactive digital resources and videos to engage students in the learning process. For students taking the advanced placement exam, we recommend Barron's AP Chinese Language and Culture, which includes comprehensive reviews for all parts of the exam, as well as practice questions and exercises. We intend to implement our new materials at the beginning of the 21-22 school year. In preparation for this, Carnegie Learning is providing us with a professional learning plan to fully support teachers throughout the life of the adoption. There will be 2 initial implementation workshops, one in May at the end of the school year, and one in July right before the new school year begins. These workshops may be held in person or virtually in keeping with the COVID safety measures. We will then begin using the new materials in August 2021. In addition to the initial implementation workshops, Carnegie will provide 3 custom workshops in order to meet our unique needs and 20 hours of virtual coaching and support. In years 2 through 7, we will continue to receive professional learning support with custom workshops and virtual coaching to support our new teachers as they join our team. Gail, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Amber. Here is a breakdown of each of those resources that Amber just shared. The vast bulk of the adoption really falls with Carnegie Learning and our large Spanish, French, and Mandarin high school courses, with the other resources that Amber went over listed just below. As you can see, when you put all of that together, the total amount for this adoption, which supports multiple programs, multiple students and classrooms, is just over $1 million. So $1,046,581. That does include shipping and handling, and that is where we are for our Spanish, French, Mandarin, and the AP, IB, and high-level courses. Recommendations for our American Sign Language and Mandarin capstone will be presented at a later date. We did not feel that the materials that were submitted were at the quality that we would want, and so we will bring that back at another time. So with that, I will say thank you, gracias, and I will have Amber say.
Oh, you're on mute, Amber.
Amber, we can't hear you say "Che or merci beaucoup."
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Amber. Thank you so much, Dr. Galligan. Do any of the board members have questions for our presenters on this matter? Hearing none, what I would say is if any come up, please email Dr. Finch and we can ensure they get answered prior to the next meeting at the end of the month. We will go on to our next item, item 8A, Governing Board Reports. Mrs. Fisher?
I only have a few. This time of the year, we have a lot of students doing presentations. And in general, those presentations have to be, or at least their topic has to be approved somewhere by someone. Generally, it's a teacher. Last week in a 5th grade class, a student presented sexual education topics in our district. They touched on LGBTQ, swag, which I thought swag was a bag of stuff. I've been educated. Transgender, homophobia, and went on into police brutality. This was done in, like I said, one of our 5th grade classes. The question I have for our administration, it doesn't have to be answered today, but I would like it answered in a meeting, not in a Friday update, is do we have a standard for approval of topics? Is there any parental consideration or consent for the topics? Is there any thing we could send to the parents, or do we send anything to parents to inform them that the topics that may be okay in their household are not okay in someone else's household? So that's my number one. I didn't expect anybody would have an answer for those today, but I would like a response in a board meeting. Number two, we did all receive the community education inquiry about them being changing their hours to 7 a.m. I'm glad that my children are now all old enough to not have to go to that before and after care, though I loved our before and after care. But I can tell you, if I had to drop off my children at 7 o'clock, I would have never made it to work. So I do hope that our administration considers that there will be a lot of parents that will have to probably change what they're doing based on that change. And with our student count dropping, I'm not sure that reducing our services or making them difficult for our parents is a good choice. My third was a club performance. We already addressed that earlier. I did try this week to join the NSBA conference. And I will tell you, I have a new respect and understanding for what our students go through and how ineffective online communications actually are. I did spend a lot of time watching buffering, and on the helpline trying to figure out what's wrong with the system. And after 3 or 4 browsers, was finally able to attend some of the conference, though I will have to go back pretty much because I missed all but maybe two things I was actually to be able to see. I am a little concerned that school boards associations are very heavily pushing liberal agendas into schools. We're not here to push any political agenda. I don't want mine pushed on our children, but I don't want someone else's pushed on them either. And I was very concerned that there was a lot of content that was very questionable, very pushed towards topics that we've brought up before with a critical race theory and things of that nature, which the name keeps changing, but the topic's the same and it keeps occurring. So I am very concerned, and I just think as a whole industry, we need to be cautious, but as Deer Valley, we definitely need to be cautious that we are not pulling in some national agenda or even local, an agenda that's maybe not in line with our community. Our Constitution provides for parents to be the primary in guiding their students' education, and I just really think we need to respect our parents. My last topic, and I will stop at that, is I'm very disappointed that the ADA accommodations are being thrown out the window and that we are back to virtual meetings that are virtually ineffective. I hope that our district decides to maybe start looking at what other districts are doing, because they're leading the way and moving forward while we are not. And I just find it very concerning that we are, you know, as a board member, to have my ADA accommodations thrown out the window. What do we do to our employees or to children or to whomever? And I just think it's very concerning. We need to start thinking about our whole population, not just our chosen population. And with that, I will end my comment.
Mrs. Reed?
Thank you. I just want to say congratulations to our six and Coach Hobson for winning those awards and achievements. I wish that we were there to be able to congratulate you in person, and also want to congratulate again Mrs. Wick for her new appointment to Constitution. I'm excited for the last final couple of weeks of school. With having a senior, it's a little bit bittersweet for me. You know, I think that we're all ready for the school year to be over. It's been quite a tumultuous year, but you know, a little bit. I'm wishing I could rewind time a little bit more, just to have a few more weeks with my senior in high school. I did see, I did get some of the screenshots sent to me regarding Mrs. Fisher's post on her ADA accommodation not being honored. And I am highly concerned with that. And, you know, I do want to make sure that we are able to honor that ADA accommodation, but because that is confidential, I don't know what that is, and I know that the district cannot provide us with what that was, but I know Mrs. Fisher, you had made some strong accusations against the superintendent, who is our board employee. And so if there is something that you feel that the board needs to take action on to ensure that your accommodations are being held, I would hope that we could have that discussion and that you might be able to share those accommodations with us so we can ensure that those were handled properly. On the other side of that, from some of the other posts that were shared too, I do know that you had mentioned that your ADA accommodation was going to revolve around 2 face shields being worn, one at your chin and then one at the top on the glasses. And I did see you wear part of that at the board meeting. Again, I don't know what your accommodations are because those are confidential, but if it did have to do with both of those being worn, with sitting not too far away from you, I can say that the top face shield wasn't worn the majority of the meeting. And so if that's what it was, you know, I'm hopeful that that we might be able to remedy that situation. And if it was something else that that Dr. Finch or the district did not do, then please let us know so that the board can provide some corrective action on that part. Thank you.
Mrs. Paperman.
I would like to thank everyone for the presentation, also to let the community members know that I am reading the emails, and I know the mask mandate can be an issue for some. I'm in the battlefield as a teacher in the classroom. I understand the student needs of math breaks and but at the same time, the district needs to follow mitigation plan. We don't know what 2021 and 2022 is going to look like, but for now, let's try to do our best as staff. Think out of the box, maybe give our students more math breaks. Now that the weather's getting hot, give them the opportunity to drink more water. But it is a challenge. The school year is almost over, and I pray to God that 2021, 22 will be a better year. Thank you.
Mrs. Ordway?
Well, thank you. I just have a little bit of a summary on looking back the last, I don't know, 6-7 months, or a year, however long it's been COVID time, maybe 12 years. Challenging times do present opportunities for innovation and sharpening, and in some cases, discovering problem-solving skills. I am really, truly grateful for all the efforts that have been put forth and continue to be put forth by all members of our DVUSD family. I'm very aware that not all are convinced that our mitigation strategies and policies are necessary. I'm also very aware that we are now returning to having things that students wished that they could have had before. I believe that it is so smart and so brave for our staff, students, teachers, and community members to stand so strong with this. As you see the athletics happening, you see the fine arts happening, senior activities may look really unique, but oh my gosh, how cool is that going to be? But they're returning. So our students have been thinking about this all this time. What are we going to do for my senior year? They started last summer. And now they see how things are happening, and they're enjoying the moments, all of the moments, the shenanigan moments, the signing moments, sighing moments, and everything in between. So it is so hard to continue to do what you wish you didn't have to do, because I don't want to be on WebEx. I want to be there, and at the end of the meeting, I want to give everybody a hug and tell them thank you and I missed you and all that. And it's in order for that to happen, we all have to continue to do what we're doing in a safe and steady way. And I believe that our leadership, which from the top would be our board members, need to stay together, whether we agree on everything or not, but we lead by example. And if we want this to have a beautiful ending sooner than way later, then we need to stay the course. So that's really all I have to say, other than female wrestlers are awesome. So are male wrestlers, but the female streak has continued. So I look forward to much, much more at the end of this, as the school year ends. And I wanted to clarify a statement that I had made about, it just came to my head right now, about charter and private schools. My point is that traditional public schools cannot hire, will not hire teachers that do not, or that are not certificated, whereas that is not the case for everyone else. So with that, Mrs. O'Brien, I appreciate your leadership also, and there you go.
Thank you, Mrs. Ordway. I would like to first congratulate our wrestling state champions from Barry Goldwater High School. Just for those folks who weren't able to join during the awards at 6:30, we had Brea Garcia, who is, I believe, it's her third state championship in a row, girls wrestling champ. So that's awesome. And Andrew Swilem is the state champion for Division III 132-pound wrestling champ. So congratulations to Andrew. And then I think it's important to point out for Sandra Day O'Connor High School varsity softball coach Melissa Hobson that she was nominated by the Arizona Interscholastic Association for the National Federation of High School Sports Coach of the Year for 2019 and 20. And not just was she nominated, but she won. So I'd like to congratulate her. We do have awesome things going on in our district while we are achieving and growing and managing a pandemic. So those are a lot of glass balls to keep up in the air. And so it's important for everybody to know that that is continuing. I also was able to attend the National School Board Association's annual conference. There were a lot of sessions on returning to school. I feel like I say this all the time. I skipped those because been there, done that, right? We've been in for a long time. So it's not as much fun to learn there, but I did attend some sessions about the importance of governing boards, governing and letting our staff handle the daily operations and doing some self-reflection regarding that. And so hope to have some materials to share with Dr. Finch and fellow board members. I'd like to thank Dr. Tunis and Mrs. Allred in helping me to finalize some comments for an interview request related to an equity article in AZ Ed News. And I think what is important about that is that we do it every day in Deer Valley. We look at subpopulations of students to ensure that we are meeting them where they're at, and so that they can achieve and grow in their learning, and that we're supporting them in their social and emotional learning as well. So I appreciate that help. I also attended the Arizona Capital Times does morning scoops, and this morning's morning scoop, I believe it was this morning, what's next for K-12 education in the state of Arizona. There were 5 superintendents from across the greater Phoenix area. And the one thing that I want to share right now is that the moderator talked about loss of learning. And I think that a couple of the superintendents brought that up, the fact that there was a lot of learning happening during the pandemic. It might not have been necessarily the learning of our state standards the way we would normally do them or want them to be done. But to ignore the learning and growth that has occurred during this year in our students, I think is a discredit to their resilience and their ability to learn by doing other things and being in different situations. That does not mean that we won't have some areas to some gaps here or there. And I'm confident that our district leadership and staff is going to learn and figure out where those are and provide the proper supports to our students over the summer and the next year to bring our students to the levels where we know they should be. So I just want to leave you all with that thought that we are learning a lot, and our students are, our staff, our district administration, and our governing board. And I really just appreciate everybody's hard work. And we've only got about 6 weeks left to school. So keep working hard because we're almost at the finish line. And that I will turn it over to Superintendent Dr. Finch for his superintendent's report.
Thank you, board members. Just shortly, I'm going to jump off of what Ms. O'Brien just said. It's been an honor for our team here to lead actually this whole North Valley on this COVID adventure. Our school district has been able to help many of our neighbors succeed. And likewise, we've had a great NEVIC sharing group where we share our ideas, and we met a ton this year, twice as much as we did last year. And so that working together made a difference. And so that's been good to see us work together. Many of them are brand new superintendents, are new to the superintendent chair. So we were able to, a lot of my team members were able to help them out as well in the different divisions. So also, I just want to thank, as I did the last board meeting, thank the cabinet, thank the administrators, thank the staff for a great year. Or we can see the tape, but we still have a couple more miles to go. But it's been a good year as we celebrate the sports and the activities and the arts and stuff at the end here. It's been good to be able to have the students be able to experience that, because obviously many of them missed out of that last year during this time. As noted, we're continuing to work with our attorneys on making sure all our ADA accommodations meet the requirements. So we'll continue to work with Ms. Fisher, with our two attorneys. We have Denise Low-Britt out of, and Robert Haas that work on that. And they'll continue to work on that. I want to also thank Joan Wick, who is now being, going to go over to Constitution and lead that district, or lead that building. Pretty excited for her that she's stepped up to the plate. We want to thank Shanna Leva for her service, as well as she was a Constitution principal for many years and did a nice job and was heading out to another state. So that's what I have from my chair. It's been a good year, been a fun year. It's been a difficult year, all in the same breath. Obviously, COVID gave us many challenges, but my team stepped up and did a nice job, and we have a lot to be proud of. So thanks, and that's it for me. Thanks.
Ms.
Thank you.
O'Brien, and I know it's out of context, but I'm sorry. Ms. Reed, I will send you an email. Mr. Finch, Rob Haas having anything to do with me is inappropriate.
Okay, this is not the time or place to talk about this, Mrs. Fisher. Thank
It's
you
the
very
only
much.
time we
If we could-
have. We're not board members any other time, according to.
If I could please have, sorry, future meeting dates and events are posted, and if I could have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:08.
And a second, please. Oh, thank you, Mrs. Reed. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Doesn't matter.
All right. I hope we had at least 4. I could. Mrs. Paperman, did you vote? Yes? Okay. We are adjourned.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.